David,
There he is.
we're about a week away from preseason Hornets basketball.
Incredible.
The fall season of television is kicking off in kind. Movies are coming back.
Movies
And
are
I
back.
saw a trailer for the newest Paul Thomas Anderson movie, which I'm a huge PTA fan.
Bradley
And
Cooper, et al.
Bradley Cooper, and a lot of unknowns, which I like, but we'll
Sure.
get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
And also, I'm about to take 6 weeks off of work and have my
There we
first
go.
child. This is our time.
It's happening.
is-
It's all happening.
This podcast was made for this season right here. I don't think this podcast gets any better than October to like February. Like I think our season, if you could block, like we go all year, but I think if you could block our show into a season, it would start in October and end like our season finale would be the All-Star weekend because that's your time.
Oh, yes, that would be excellent. Maybe we should just go into that scheduling now. Make it happen. This is what we've been building to.
Well, and that scheduling sort of understands that the Hornets rarely make waves in the playoffs, so that's why it doesn't extend into May
Listen,
and April.
we follow the trends, okay? Change our minds, Hornets.
Okay, I got a lot on the rundown here. We're gonna bounce all around. We've got training camp to talk about. We've got 2F2F. I finally watched it. I've got a review of Too Fast, Too Furious. You've got top 3 comfy shoes for the delivery room. ESPN Top 100. A bunch of Hornets showed up in that. So let's get into it. This is not a Serious Hornets podcast. I'm Doug Branson. He is David Walker. David, how are you?
I'm great, man. I am excited for you. I'm excited for producer Katie. And
Why? Because I watched Too Fast, Too Furious?
Yeah. I mean, oh, yeah. Also, the kid thing is coming up too. So that's exciting.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so again, we're going to bounce around a lot. I think we should we have an obligation because this is not a Serious Hornets podcast, but it is a Hornets podcast. So I think we have an obligation to start with the Charlotte Hornets, and it's a busy time for them right now. They've got a lot going on. They finally talked to the media, and they have started training camp. They are in day 2 of training camp, and they've got a really stacked roster. I mean, they've got a lot of guys under contract. I'm not sure mathematically and by the CBA how they're going to make it all work, but they've got some tough decisions to make at the bottom of this final, regular season roster that they have to make. One decision that they've already made, David, is LiAngelo Ball not with the Hornets on the training camp roster after making a few little mini waves, and he did some exciting things, some ripples in Las Vegas. What do you think? LiAngelo Ball not on the roster.
It's so funny because I heard his brother Lonzo Ball interviewed during Bulls training camp on NBA radio. The last question was about LiAngelo. That's how much of a reach the Ball family still has. It is incredible.
If you go to charlotteobserver.com, it is one of their top trending articles. Is Booney doing the write-up on LiAngelo Ball not making the roster? That's one of their trending topics.
It's wild, but I think we have to point back to what we talked about during Summer League, and this is the main point with Summer League every time. It's Summer League, Doug. It's still Summer League. Ripples in Summer League rarely amount to waves in the season. Just got done reading a surfing book, so I don't know if that transitioned. I don't know if that made its transition into that metaphor, but you know what I'm saying? Like we were all.
Is it a book about surfing? An instructional book?
Oh yeah, this guy's life isn't well. You could take some instruction from it. Basically, what I took from it. The great thing about it, he's.
Are you reading the screenplay from Point Break?
I already read the book that's based on. That's a different surfing book. That's fiction.
Okay.
This is a biography, more or less, and he goes through his entire life. He was raised in L.A. and Hawaii, grew up surfing, and I'm like, man, I've always said I want to go surfing. And then like 3/4 of the way through the book, he's like, I get why people never start surfing after 35 and 40. They're too old. And I was like, well, that's it for me. I
Wow,
can't do
book
it now.
over.
So anyway, LiAngelo Ball, I think we saw this coming a little bit. We thought at the peak, at his best, he may have some time in Greensboro. Could still, right? I mean, that could happen, I suppose, at any time. But it's not a good sign if he's not on the training camp roster to make that drive up to Greensboro. So look, I think he showed out to the league what he's capable of. He may get a nibble here and there, but I'm not stunned that he won't be practicing with the Hornets officially.
And I think, there's things that the team sees in practice, and there are things that the team may think they need now or in the future. And that's why maybe you see a guy like DJ Carton, a point guard who has some size, make the roster, and a little bit more experience than LiAngelo Ball make the roster as opposed to him. So, all right, we'll leave the balls for a moment and go to Terry Rozier, who came out and talked to the media after training camp day one and gave us a little bit more insight into this Terry camp that we talked about in the last episode. He was able to gather everyone in Miami for a training session, an off-season training session. And they asked him about like how rare that is, that he's seen that. I think Borrego got asked that question as well. And both of them said it's unprecedented for them, like for everyone to gather in the offseason like that.
Never seen it.
They've never seen it. So, and Terry was even surprised at how quickly everybody was like, yeah, let's do it. And I think that speaks to a couple of things, David. It speaks to the fact that this team has grown as a locker room. And I think it also speaks to the fact that everybody's ready to hoop, and they're ready to hoop with one another, and they're ready to hoop with less restrictions on their activity after the past couple of seasons. There's an excitement around this team, but there's also an excitement, I think, around the league for this season to get started.
I think they just want to return to some sense of normalcy. I don't think that they'll get back there this season. Doesn't sound like across the
Not
board
quite.
with everything. Yeah. Not quite, but certainly schedule wise and routine wise, that's what they're trying to get to. And yeah, we talked about it last time. It's a huge thing for Terry to kind of be that guy that's stepping up and organizing things. I was excited to see him wearing a headband during media day. I thought it looked great. A lot of the pictures I saw coming out of there were the backcourt duo of Terry and LaMelo. So they're really building on that. I mean, that's going to be their 1-2 punch to start the season for sure. And so I think everything heading in towards into camp right now with the Hornets is they're excited. I harp on this all the time, but they harp on it even more. They felt great about where they were when they were healthy last year and they were top 4. That's what they are pinning their hopes on. And Terry's comments coming out of training camp, I have no problem with them. First of all, what else do you expect him to say? When he's asked about what are the expectations and what do they need to do? Basically, they need to make the playoffs. Yeah. I mean, that's why JB got the extension. That's why they've made some of the moves they've made. That's the expectation. And that's what he should be shooting for as the leader. He didn't shy away from it.
Hit us up on the chat, by the way, if you're watching on YouTube. If you haven't supported us yet on patreon.com/HornetsPod, just buy us a cup of coffee a month, $1 a month. That's all we're really asking for. But there are a couple options on there to help us out. It helps purchase the equipment. It puts a cup of coffee in David's belly once a month.
This is actually from a surf shop. I don't. Listen. Sometimes magic happens, and it's just You're
having a real moment right now. I feel like if you took us out to your car right now, I expect a surfboard like on top.
Cocked it, sold it for boards, bro.
I don't know what's going on. Tyler hit us up on the chat right now. He said Scary Terry's contract is proving to be worth every penny so far, despite what a certain podcaster might think about it. I think he's referring.
Shots.
I think he's referring to our good friend, who we love, Walker Mail, who, listen, I think I won't reveal anything, any personal conversations.
Backstage combos, right?
Right, I won't do that. But I have a hunch that Scary Terry has the potential to win a certain podcaster over at some point, that there is some judgment being reserved. But Tyler's right. Tyler also held my feet to the fire on the 2F2F rewatch, or not rewatch, first time watch for me. I'm watching all of the Fast and the Furious movies as a favor to David Walker. He's finally got me on the train. Nice use of the mute button there, by the way. Took a little cough there, but hit the mute button.
This is 10 years in or something like that, Doug. I mean, come on.
You have a broadcasting lineage, so I expect nothing less. So well done on the cough button usage. All right, let's. If you have some chats, hit us up on YouTube. If you're listening to this podcast right now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, that's great. We love that. But you can come have some fun with us when we go live. If you subscribe to our YouTube channel and then turn your notifications on, you'll actually get notified when we go live like this, so you can hang out with us and talk Hornets. So give us all your thoughts about players, questions that you have, and we'll answer them through the show. Let's get back to some of these training camp thoughts. David, a lot of questions were about LaMelo Ball, unsurprisingly. In fact, in training camp day 2 or training camp day 1, I felt like Terry at one point, I feel like he needs to get used to it, and all these players do have to get used to a lot of the questions being about LaMelo, but there were a lot of questions that Terry Rozier about LaMelo Ball. I felt bad for him. It's like, hey, can we ask Terry about Terry for a second?
I mean, just be glad they didn't ask you about LiAngelo. You know what I mean? They may have. I don't know.
Yeah, you could be thankful for that. But Terry did say that LaMelo Ball is night and day from last season. So that's exciting. He said their job this season is to let Melo be special. He's our quarterback. These are great quotes to hear from a veteran like LaMelo, that there is some understanding. A veteran like Terry, that there is some understanding about LaMelo's place within the sort of hierarchy of things.
So night and day as far as just like professionalism, showing up, just what he's doing, or
no, I think that was clear last year. He was definitely professional and showing up. I think it's just like night and day in terms of his skill set. Yeah.
Wow, fantastic. That's great to hear.
Yeah, because I mean that's going to be the big evolution, right? For LaMelo it's not his work ethic, it's not his professionalism. I think they can get better, and I think Borrego made some comments about like that will naturally happen, but it's going to be his command of the floor, his ability to, and Borrego said this, I'm not sure if it was training camp or media day, but he referenced like LaMelo plays on instinct. He plays on energy. And it's how do you slow that down as you mature as a player? How do you slow that down and see the floor and make the right play and put the players in the right position? That's going to be the thing that we see evolve, and I think it's going to happen quicker than it does for most players. This is the super exciting news. You ready for this, David? I heard several questions about LaMelo's wrist and how he looks, and for everything that I heard out of training camp was that he's back to normal. We had some questions about that, but he's back to normal.
Yeah. I guess I get what Terry's saying. I mean, they didn't really have a training camp per se last year. They kind of hit the ground running, right? And if you think back to the games and the practices of LaMelo's early days, it took him, I don't know, a little bit to kind of get used to things. Not too long, obviously. So it's good to see that he's kind of showing up and they're not able to tell, his youth, right? Like he's mixing in with the rest of the team and performing as they were used to seeing last year. So that makes sense. But yeah, the wrist is obviously huge. They want to keep that healthy going forward, and that's all they're doing at this point. And you're right, though. It goes back to what we said about this organization from the top down. At this point, it really feels like they are all on the same page, right? Mm-hmm. They know it's pretty much LaMelo's ship. He's got the keys, if not, from day one, pretty soon. And so they're building around him. They're going to try and bring him along, but also let him excel. And that's clear from the top down that they're trying to build around him. And you're right. It's great that the guys actually on the floor with him like him, obviously. That says something about LaMelo and how much fun he is to play with and be around. But that they recognize that and they're ready to build upon that. So yeah, it's all good. So far, so good coming out of training camp from the vibes from the Charlotte Hornets, I think.
Let's go back to the chat. Tyler saying, what better daddy-baby bonding activity than binging?
It's all about family. It's all about family.
FF franchise.
Exactly.
All right, well, let's take a pause from the training camp conversations and move over to my running reviews series of the Fast and the Furious franchise. I'm only on movie 2. It's taking me a little while to get to these, but as Tyler references there, I'm going to have a lot of time on my hands pretty soon. Or at least a lot of sitting and waiting time on my hands. So we'll get to these a little faster. David, too fast, Too Furious.
First of all, great title. I mean, come on.
What the number
Great use.
usage
Yeah,
instead of the
that's
T?
yeah.
Yeah.
You got to
Yep.
remember back in the day before they had all the number usage, this was pretty ahead of its
Oh,
time.
so this was revolution. You're saying this
I
movie
mean,
was
I'm just
revolutionary.
saying, everybody's doing it now, but
Would you? Okay, I'm going to give you the choice, David. Would you like just my general review? I've got some notes here. I just took some running notes
I
as I
see.
watched it.
Yeah.
What do you think? What
I
do you
mean,
want?
just give me your first impressions, and then we can hit on some of these high points.
My first impressions, and do note that I really didn't do much background research into these movies.
Don't
I
need to.
kind of go into it cold. I go into it blind as possible. I do know that The Rock shows up at some point in this franchise, but that really is the extent of my knowledge of the franchise.
But this is 1 and 2 so far, right? You didn't jump to Tokyo Drift. You've gone 1, 2. Is that your
I
order?
went 1, 2.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think Tokyo Drift is 3 in the production order, right? But apparently
Correct.
temporally it's different. Anyway, we're getting
Oh,
way
boy.
off topic.
Yeah.
2F, 2F. Here's my elevator review. I think it's genuinely a terrible movie that won me over somehow by the end of it. Like it got into so bad it was good territory right at the end, but it's too long. The dialogue is painful, and I hate to speak ill of the dead, but
Careful.
I know, but I mean the acting from my man Brian is not good. The main character, it's not good acting,
PW.
and the script is not helping. I liked Tyrese's energy in this movie, but
Wow.
it seemed like he was kind of trying to do a Beverly Hills Cop impression through a lot of it, and it wasn't quite as like nobody's Eddie, and it wasn't quite there. I did love Ludacris. I thought Ludacris was legitimately the best actor in this movie. I felt bad, honestly, for John Singletary because I felt like there was he was trying to do something, and he was a great director. He's no longer with us. He has done some amazing films, and you could see he was trying. The script didn't do him any favors. Some of the acting performances didn't do him any favors. I didn't love some of the choices that he made in terms of shot. So he used like a lot of wide angle lenses, and it distorted. It was like he was doing something different, but like in a not great way, in a way that distracted me a lot of times. So,
Okay.
but it did win me over at the end. I felt by the end, and we can get to the end, what happened at the end of the movie, because I think it does foreshadow some things that happen through the rest of the franchise.
Yes. So first of all, I'm glad to hear that you thoroughly enjoyed Ludacris because he's not going anywhere. And
Great.
once he shows up again, he is here to
Better than
stay.
Ja
So
Rule. He was
so
way
look
way
forward to
more
that.
interesting than Ja Rule.
Yeah. So we should mention that Ja Rule, I believe, bowed out after the first one. Huge mistake.
Well,
Big
also
mistake.
bowed out Don. So my first
Right.
note.
So we should
the
jump back to
first
that.
note that I have down on my pad is, I hope the opening shot is Don sitting on a beach getting
Okay,
pulled
first of all,
back into the
it's
action.
Dom. I'm sure you're saying Dom. I'm sure you're not saying Don. His name is not Donald. His name is Dominic.
Of course, that's what I said.
Oh
I
my
said
God.
Dom.
Okay.
Yeah, Eminem.
We'll give you a pass because
if
he
you've ever
wasn't in
tried
this
to
movie.
if you've ever tried to spell something out on Siri, you know that Eminem, it gets confused a lot. So I get where you got confused, but I definitely did say Dom. Definitely. So I wanted more Dominic. I could call it Dominic Don, I think, by the way. I could be like, Donnie. All right. But he's not in this movie because he bowed
Right.
out.
So that's the first thing, right? Any movie up until it wasn't possible anymore. Any movie without Dom and Brian it immediately goes to the bottom of the list because that's the core, that's the heart of the franchise. That's the duo, that's what family is built upon. So when Dom was not in this film, it was immediately a step down. They obviously injected Tyrese to try and bring a little some of that and try to go the buddy cop route. One of my favorite
Yeah.
things about Fast and Furious franchise is they sometimes heavily, sometimes lightly, tip their cap to certain genres: buddy cop, heist, evil guy. Like they go through three themes that you may have enjoyed in TV shows and movies growing up, and they hit on those and they play with those and they have fun with those. This one is kind of the buddy cop one. And if you liked the if you like the plot of this movie, I got great news for you. It's basically the same one as Fast 4, which is called Fast and Furious, not
Uh,
to be confused with The Fast and The Furious.
I'm
So
already
just look forward to
confused,
that.
and I didn't like the plot of this movie, so I'm already foreshadowing what my review of Fast Four is going to be.
Um,
Let's talk about Brian and Roman for a minute.
yeah.
I think there is a legitimate sexual tension between the two that will never be discussed, and I have a feeling will never be explored in this franchise. A little too safe of a franchise to explore that. But I'm telling you, you can go back and rewatch most of this movie, and if I told you that Brian and Roman were in a relationship that is never discussed, it will make sense. Like the dialogue, the interactions, it will make enough sense.
Well, they were in juvie together. That's the basis of their relationship. That's how they knew each other. I didn't pick up on that. I think it's
I'm
because
telling you, it's secret. It will never be discussed. But there's a relationship there. I'm telling you.
there's a lot of mutual love, respect, and admiration. I'll give you
You
that.
call it
That's clear.
family. I think it's a little. I think it's a little more intimate than that.
Well, I will say maybe you're getting to this. Recent criticism or critiquing of this film credit Singleton with kind of looking forward to what the franchise would become. So I think you hit on this a little bit before. What they've done now.
I think I called him John
4
Singletary.
movies.
Man, I'm having a bad show.
Yeah,
I think John
yeah.
Singletary was like a linebacker.
That was Mike Singletary. There could have been
Mike
John,
Singletary.
too.
I'm having a terrible show.
So yeah, it kind of foreshadowed some of the super
Names!
soldier stuff, some of the jumps, some of the stunts, some of the stuff they were able to pull off in this movie that was just on the other side of believable. Foreshadowed kind of where the franchise would go. A lot of people give him a lot of credit for that. And some people have even gone back to say this is their favorite one because of that. I don't buy that argument. It was certainly forward looking and forward thinking and some of the stuff he tried to do. So you got to give him credit there. But at the end of the day, like I said, no Dom to pair with Brian. It's tough to take this movie super seriously. And then you mix in some of the the dialogue, the characters. I'd like to tip my cap to Cole Hauser. I always enjoy when he can get in a good sneer and some lines. He's the big bad in this.
Yeah,
movie.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah, it feels like they wanted David Hasselhoff to play the villain, but Cole was the best they could do. He's kind of looking like a meaner Hasselhoff. But you want to know what my favorite scene in the movie is?
Yeah.
It's when the big bad guy calls everyone over to his house at the very beginning of the movie. And it's revealed that the bad guy has called Brian, Roman, and the band Smash Mouth. Just a lot of dudes that look like the guys from Smash Mouth. KV McKinley on the chat saying, finally made it to the live stream where you're just in time for our rundown of my first viewing of Too Fast, Too Furious, the second.
I'm glad you said first because there will be more.
Maybe not on this one. Maybe not on this one. The first one has a romantic tinge for me. Like I really, and like thinking back to that movie, I enjoyed watching it. But I don't know if I'm going to be rewatching this one for one reason and one reason only: the rat scene. Do you remember the rat scene? Rat in a bucket on the guy's belly, heating up the rat. That's just
they did that in Game of Thrones, didn't they? They did that in Game of Thrones, or I believe it was Game of Thrones. It was certainly a medieval torture device. But yeah, that's
it was the poor rat. The disturbing. You can't get away with a scene like that in today's climate. Let's see what else happened in this movie. They used an EMP grappling gun. Like what in the RoboCop was going on in this movie?
Yeah.
Like the technology. Was Singleton making a comment on the modern American police state, the equipment that some of these like local cops had, or maybe that was the FBI. I'm unsure. It's kind of confusing the whole way through.
Well, it sets up one of the more unbelievable runs in U.S. law enforcement history. The career of Brian O'Connor. He's on the run in this movie. I mean, it starts
Right.
because he left L.A. because he gave his
Because he's got
keys
a
to
big rap
Dom.
sheet.
Right, and so there's actually a short film. There's actually a short film that does that's on like the deleted scenes or one of the DVDs, and it's all about Brian's drive from LA to Miami. It's not great. It kind of fills in the gaps though on how he ended up in Miami. But basically, I mean, he's out of law enforcement now. They bring him back in. They ask him, "Hey, you know any ex-cons that could help you out on this venture?" They bring in Roman, right? And not to spoil anything too much for you, Doug, but he does get back in the FBI full time. I mean, it's an amazing turn of events for a career that really looked like it was on the rocks.
I'm going to give you a little hot take here. I think I'm safe doing it on a Charlotte podcast. I'm going to give
Sure.
you a hot take. I think one of the big problems in this movie is that it was set in South Florida. To me, South Florida is not a beautiful place to set a movie. I think it's
And this
very
is
difficult to make it.
pre-LeBron. This is pre Heatles,
I'm just saying in
I
general.
think.
I think I like movies set in Los Angeles. I think Los Angeles is fun to film.
But
I just think
I liked Ludacris's body shop that was basically doubled as like a jet ski, ski in and out, a hamburger stand or a
it
racing
looked like
thing.
a
That's
weird.
awesome.
It looked like a weird pier to me though. Like it looked like an
Yeah.
ugly ass pier. That's what I'm saying. Like none of the sets to me were like, yeah, that's cool. So that was a big problem for me in this movie. Let's see what else do I have here. Finally, oh well, let me just say this: why half the movie was Brian dressed like a broke Tony Hawk? Like I don't
It's
understand.
hot.
Like it
It's
was
hot down there,
weird.
dude.
Long shorts.
Did
It
you
was a
remember
thing.
West Coast Choppers as being a thing? He wears a West
Well,
Coast Choppers shirt a lot.
yeah, a lot of these movies bring back a culture of racing that people that I hung out with were very interested in. I was never interested in like racing cars or
Right.
putting stereo systems in my trunk and all the things that they do cutaways for
Pimping
in
your
these
ride,
movies.
as
Pimping
it
a
were.
ride, yeah. I mean, Exhibit, that was a huge thing. Please tell me I got that name right. Jesus, I've been terrible this show.
What? Which name was that?
Exhibit, right? He was the host of Pimp My Ride.
Yeah.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
goodness. Terrible. All right. Point for me. Final thing on this movie. The henchman at the end might be the single dumbest henchman that I've ever seen in a movie. And the villain, and we'll give the villain some credit for this one. So at the end of this movie, they the villain instructs the henchmen to get rid of the cars that they've drove to this boat.
Yep.
Get rid of the cars and kill our man Brian. And so he tells Brian to drive the car. The henchman tells Brian to drive the car. Like I'm sitting there with huge Scott Evil
Not
vibes.
smart.
Like
Right.
just shoot him. Just shoot him right now. Drag his body into the car and then blow the car up or something. Like what are we doing?
Yeah, I will say this, and KV said, I think he's referring to this film. It's overrated, still not the best. Yeah, I would say it's properly rated for me, though, because you really don't have the appreciation for this until you get a little further down the line. I don't think you have to get all the way till nine to start looking back upon this fondly, but it introduces Tyrese, it brings Eva Mendes into the fold, which is never a bad thing. And it advances the story along, and you can look back on it, especially of course it brings in Ludacris as well, who one of the all-time just meteoric rises for a character and his intelligence and what he's able to do. He's basically the smartest man alive in Fast Nine. He's able to hack into any computer. He's able to surveil anything.
Spoilers.
None of this, well, none of this was apparent, although had a very successful body shop in Miami. So kudos to him. And I just think giving this vehicle, pun intended, Paul Walker's, let him take the lead here. I'm not mad at it. So it really completes everything, but it's taken in and of itself. It's amazing they still made any more movies, and you can see the next one in the line is Tokyo Drift, which neither one of them are in.
It
So
is amazing that they've reinvented it to the point where it is today. Also, I will say that this movie, I think, again, I don't know a ton about the franchise, but from what I do
you're good there.
know, cars become magical at some point. Like they're just doing things, and vehicles are doing things that they shouldn't do. And so I think there were a couple of foreshadowing elements in this movie. One is obviously the final scene where they hit 120, doing the Nas. By the
Yeah.
way, at the beginning of the movie, he wins the race by hitting both Nas buttons at the same time. It feels revelatory, but it's like, why doesn't everyone do that? just hit both of the Nas's every time and you
You can
win.
never have too much. Yeah, just always double up on the nos.
Um, but the car jumps this ramp and
Yeah.
lands, breaks all laws of physics and lands on the yacht where the villain is, and defeating the villain.
And there's a reference to the Dukes of Hazard. So, you see
Yeah,
like they
yeah.
kind of get into there and they give winks to everything.
Oh,
Uh
also the stare and drive. Do you remember the scene where he stares at Eva Mendes while he's driving,
how could you not?
and the backwards
Oh
driving? To
yeah.
me, this foreshadows the super soldier element that I've heard there's a super, like, there's just some element of them being a lot more than human. I just think that this,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I think Brian may be superhuman, is what I'm saying. I think this is a superhero movie.
Oh, it definitely is. So I'm glad you finally watched this one. I'll just tell you, do watch Tokyo Drift. I would stay with
I'm
the
going to. I have to.
I would stay with
I'm
the
going through the.
release order.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm not
Uh,
going in any kind of weird temporal order that people
because
make up
Yeah,
on the
because
spot.
the flip they do, the journey they take you on outside of actually watching the films is half the fun of watching the films. I mean, that's where the brilliance of the franchise and their creators really, really shows.
Well, I'll
So,
tell you that before I started this, I had only seen Tokyo Drift. And
okay,
I had only seen parts of Tokyo Drift. I thought I had seen Fast and Furious before, but it turns out that was Gone in
you just
60
saw Point
Seconds.
Break. Okay.
Gone in 60 Seconds. I was confusing Gone in 60 Seconds with
Hmm.
the Fast and the Furious.
By the way,
Mhm.
at some point, maybe after you get through this, I want to talk about a list of people who should be added to this franchise. Because you mentioned The Rock before. At one point, I thought Mark Wahlberg was a sure thing to be in one of these movies,
It
and
should have it
so
should have leaned full camp, and that's what I'm saying. David Hasselhoff,
Nick
anyone that was
Cage,
involved in any kind of car movie, like the Dukes of Hazzard, in fact, they should have
yeah,
worked some of those characters.
like
Yeah,
Tarantino brings in Tom Wopat and
I know
Luke
Kurt Russell.
Perry,
Kurt
and
Russell does show up at some point. I
oh
did
yes,
spoil
oh
that for
yes,
myself. Keanu
yeah,
Reeves, Danny on the chat
Keanu would be
says,
great. I think Nick Cage, you can never go wrong there.
"All right, we'll do this. We'll do yeah.
Yeah,
Just throw some characters out there that should have been in the Fast. And by the way, we say should have as if they're not doing Fast
right.
15. Like they've got time to make
Oh,
these
there's
casting
yeah,
decisions.
there's two more coming of just the canon story, and then we get into the spinoffs. I guess I don't know. I'm so
I can't
excited.
wait to do we get some electric vehicles at some point? That's what let's get some flying vehicles at
They're
some
not
point.
the most environmentally conscious films, I would say. They burn a lot of fuel. So
Steve
we'll see. Maybe
Buscemi
that's
says
somewhere to
Danny
look.
on the chat.
Okay.
I
I
like it.
mean, you can never go wrong there for sure.
Yeah, just like make him like a seedy underworld guy.
Yeah.
All right, KV says excited for the new Matrix. Let's do this real quick, and then I want to show everyone this hilarious tweet. Am I excited for the new Matrix? David, I'll let you go first because I've done a lot of talking in this segment.
Um, Not as excited as I probably should be. I'll say that. I've got a bit of a blind spot for the Matrix 2 and 3. So I
Mhm.
need to get caught up, but I'm excited to see a cool movie. So yes.
Yeah, I think I'm probably a little bit more excited than you are, but generally landing in the same place. I have a love for that franchise. It was really one of the first franchises that I remember staying up, till midnight to see at a theater release. Was the second movie with my friends. And so it has a special place in my heart. I love the first movie. The second movie's really, really good. The third movie is not good, and I think that's generally where everyone lands on the
Mhm.
trilogy. I think they're coming at it from a really great place. Like the creator seems to be very like this was a good idea and we wanted to do it, and most of the people are back for this movie. Neil Patrick Harris seems like a great casting decision to me, um, and I hope it's great. I'm going to see it. I probably won't stay up till midnight because I'll have a newborn, but maybe that's a reason to stay up till midnight.
Listen, I bought Bill and Ted's third movie, whatever that was called, on release day and watched that. So I'm amped for any Keanu vehicle.
Great.
Yeah.
I think that's a great place to be. All right, I want to share my screen and I want to go to this tweet that I saw that I really wanted to share with the entire Hornets fan base. Let's get these graphics down. Let's get this screen up. All right, so this was this is a tweet, David. David's already shaking his head. He's already shaking his head. All right, so this is the tweet. Bally Sports Southeast will televise all 82 Hornets games for the 2021-22 NBA season. Very banal tweet, just the broadcast network saying, "Hey, we're broadcasting all the games, guys."
Is Twitter, or is there any type of warning, like a Trump type, hey, go here to fact check this bullcorn?
Bullcorn. All right, let's read I want to read some of the comments.
Oh, then no.
Okay. Our boy David, he's a big fan of the show. I hope he's watching or listening. He says nobody cares because we can't watch it, and we are Sinclair could give a crap less about any of the fans in these regional markets. Here's to hoping y'all lose the contract next time around.
Shout out.
Go Pack saying, you reading these comments, your fans are speaking. Are you listening? The next generation cable cutters want to watch you play and literally can't pay to do it. This is not good for your franchise. Please address this. This next one, until y'all offer a reasonable streaming option, I'll keep finding other ways. I literally could not pay to watch these games last year, short of a full run on cable. I would hit show more replies, but I'm afraid of the vitriol that people are going to be spitting.
Unless there's one that's like, can't wait, guys. Thanks for the fantastic service. Glad you're back.
I love cable television. Anyway, that's that. What are your thoughts?
I'm full on investigation how I'm going to watch the Hornets this year. I'm landing on. I'm landing on some sort of VPN. I'm going to try that angle.
Wow.
I don't know. I mean, it's not ideal, but
be careful out there.
We could talk about this now, dog. I think it's safe to talk about our beloved long lost service that we.
That's right.
Last season,
we bought a service called Hee Streams. We didn't want to talk about it a lot because we were afraid if we talked about it, it would go away.
And it did.
And we didn't talk about it, and it went away. You were on board from the jump, and I was a little bit more skeptical. I paid by the month because I was like, I'm not dropping more than $100.
Sure.
If I'm not sure that this thing's not going to get shut down, and it made it through the season, but it did get shut down.
Yeah, their Twitter handle now is Hee Streams, or their bio is used to be a streaming platform. It's still active though. I gave him a couple of mentions yesterday, and he liked them. But that was the only choice we had.
Well, I did that. So for me, like I subscribe to Hulu for cable.
Yeah.
I pay for things. I don't like. I'm past that point where like I was in college where I was just like stealing everything digitally. I'm past that point. I pay for things. League Pass right now, if I bought League Pass from Nashville, Tennessee, would black out 16 Hornets games because I'm in this weird region, and I'm going to do it because I have no choice now, but it's going to black out so many games for me because if they play Atlanta, Memphis, and there's one other team that they inexplicably black out in Nashville, Tennessee. We don't have a team. We don't have a professional team.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what option we're left with. We talked this over a lot last year before we made the plunge, and we said if there's any other option
it's a plunge. It is a plunge to our viewing death.
I mean, I've bought League Pass every year. I'm sure I'll get it again this year. I would happily pay, but right now you can't even get the Bally's streaming thing. I'm sure I would cave and do that if it was available, even though I've heard that app is absolute garbage, which I'm sure it is. That's not going to be ready until it sounds like the earliest 2022. That's no good. I'm not going to switch and go back to DirecTV. I'm not going to do I mean, it's ridiculous. And I know people are bagging on the Hornets and they want to, and they're bagging on YouTube TV and they're bagging on Hulu, right? But like this does come down to, as in my opinion, Sinclair. They're trying to create another streaming service. I don't know what the hell they're trying to do. I think it's like 25 or $30 just to be able to watch basically what was Fox Sports Southeast, Fox Sports South. We don't know. We'll see what it is. But as of right now, a lot of Hornets fans are out of luck if you don't go to the games here, and if they're not on national TV, and sometimes even if they are, they'll be blacked out. So what else are you left to do? And people are trying to work their way around this now. Like Reddit has some, stuff to do and options, but like none of that's. But like you said,
sketchy.
we're not out trying to
I want to pay for it.
skimp the service. Yeah,
I want to pay for
I'd
it.
be happy to.
I want to pay for a service that's fair.
Yeah,
that's it. I want to pay for a service that's fair and customer friendly.
No problem.
These services are not customer friendly. They're not fair. And the other thing I will say is that people are starting to throw around terms like CSET, which if you are a deep cut fan of this franchise and you remember the early days of the Bobcats when Bob Johnson, who formerly owned a television network, BET, decided, hey, why don't we just form a network to cover my team? And the unfortunate part was that no one could get the network. And so it was a unmitigated disaster that they had to run away from. So people are starting to throw that term around, which I think is dangerous for the franchise. The second thing that you have to understand is that if this team goes to the playoffs and makes a run, the pressure is going to be immense. Because right now, they can get away with this because not a lot of people, or not a large enough base of people want to watch this team yet. It's growing, but not enough. But if LaMelo does what we all think he's going to do, Bally, the pressure is going to be on Bally.
And it's not just here, right? I mean, they have their mitts around all of these former RSNs, these regional sports networks. So,
well, and the regional sports networks want all of these like YouTube TVs and Hulu's to pay a bunch of money.
Right.
And from the YouTube TV and Hulu's perspective, they're saying like, if we do that, then we're just going to be priced at the same level as cable. There's no reason for people. I mean, it's already getting that way anyway, but I mean, it would really seal the deal. So I think that's what keeps that from happening.
And from a Hornets perspective, I don't know what they do. I mean, honestly, if you ask them about this, and I know Rick Bonnell asked them about it, I think at the beginning of last year. I don't know if Rob Boone's brought it up to anyone or the observers written in this at all.
Well, I don't know what their contract is. They're under contract.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I would appreciate if someone would ask them about it, but all they can say is they're under contract, right? They've given those rights away. So they're not their rights anymore. And the Hornets really have no say over what goes on with them. So who knows how long that contract lasts. Those things are written in a way that they're not going to come out and say and bash Bally's or whomever has them now. And so they're stuck. It'll be nice to hear something from the team to say, hey, we're going to try and figure this out. We hear you. At least we hear you, right? At least we hear you guys are frustrated. But then the next question is, what are you going to do about it? And I don't know that they can do anything.
All right, let's get back to some of our thoughts about what we've heard from media day and from training camp. They're in day 2 of training camp right now. We're just crossing our fingers that no one gets hurt in training camp, knocking on wood. Let's get to preseason. Let's get through preseason healthy. I think that's what all Hornets fans want at this point. Let's go to Miles Bridges. Miles Bridges was asked about how comfortable he would be coming off the bench. He said the thing that you would hope any player would say, which is, I'm a team player, you know? I mean, he seemed to insinuate that he would be comfortable coming off the bench. David, is that what you see Miles Bridges' role to start the season? What's your viewpoint on Miles Bridges as it pertains to the starting lineup?
Yeah, I guess that's what they expected. There was a graphic put out by the team yesterday, I think, on Twitter saying like 4 returning starters or 4 known starters, and Miles Bridges was not one of them. So apparently that view is shared across the organization. But I mean, that's kind of the punch that he brought with LaMelo off the bench last year. The way these things go, it would be shocking if Miles doesn't start at some point due to injury or availability or just play or otherwise. So I think they've got to figure out the lineup. And for him to be coming off the bench. You got to have something coming off the bench, Doug. I mean, that was part of their punch last year was they could bring in another wave of guys that can make an impact on the game off the bench. And so they're back that in the backcourt right now, at least to a known extent, is gone with the departures of Malik Monk and Devontae Graham. So having Miles Bridges come off the bench and hopefully his game has blossomed to the point where he can, take a little bit more of the creation and the offense on his shoulders in that second unit. But he's obviously going to play with LaMelo some. I mean, they're not going to split that duo up across the games. So I think starting oftentimes just gets overblown. It's minutes. It's who finishes games. It's who the crunch time crew is. And I think Miles will certainly be in the mix for all those things.
This is the tweet you were referencing. Yeah. It says day one returning starters. I don't take this to mean that these guys are locks as starters. I think that's very much up in the air.
I'd say three of them
are. Yeah, for sure Terry, for sure Gordon, definitely PJ.
Certainly PJ.
I'm kidding. Yeah, I think LaMelo, Gordon, Terry are all locks to be starters. I think PJ, to me, is the big question mark. Do you go PJ plus? Do you go small? Do you go Miles Bridges plus PJ? Do you say, nope, we need Plumlee in there to do the rim protection? Do you go PJ and Plumlee? I am going to make a prediction here that I'm sure to be wrong about, but I'm going to make a prediction and say it's actually going to be LaMelo, Terry, Gordon, Miles, Plumlee. Not Miles Plumlee.
Oh, God.
Not Miles Plumlee. Miles and
if you're listening
Miles
to this,
Bridges
stay
and Mason
keep two hands
Plumlee.
on the wheel.
Oh, God. I just said I'm sweating. I've got neck sweats now. I've got flashbacks to Miles Plumlee. No, Mason Plumlee. I think it's going to be Mason Plumlee down low. And then, but if Miles came off the bench, I think either way, like you're getting something off the bench from either Miles or PJ and Kelly Oubre. This is a deeper Hornets, a younger, deeper team than we've had in a very long time. Energetic, athletic, guys that can play on both ends of the floor, guys that give you a lot of different things, a lot of skill. It's exciting, and I agree with you. It is about minutes, and I think Miles, if he comes off the bench, will be a pseudo bench starter. Yeah. I think he's going to get significant minutes because he earned it last season. To me, I just think this is not a lock. This tweet, as much as Twitter matters, this Twitter picture with 4 returning starters is not a lock to happen.
Is that a DraftKings branded? I'm trying to figure out
it is. Hey, what is draft? I haven't heard of DraftKings. What is draft?
I'm so glad you
seen commercials for these? All right. God. Anyway, there's our analysis of the starting lineup. David, let's see what we've got left on the old rundown. Top 3 comfy shoes. I want to spend some time on that. I feel like we're kind of running out of time here. I don't want to get through that too quickly. I do want to talk about this. So the ESPN Top 100 came out about a week ago, a little more than a week ago. Miles Bridges was 87. He wasn't rated last year. Terry Rozier was 81. He wasn't rated last year. Gordon Hayward dropped to 58 from 45, mostly due to the fact that he was injured last season. So he didn't have a chance to fend off some of the people that caught up to him. And then LaMelo Ball, not rated last year, obviously, because he wasn't playing. And after his rookie campaign, he shoots all the way to 47, the only top 50 player that the Hornets currently have on the roster. Your thoughts on the Hornets having 4 players, but only 1 in the top 50?
Oh, I think that's about right. I mean, for a team that hasn't made the playoffs and, came close, sniffed it last year, but had a lot of, still have some players that need to answer questions, including LaMelo. It's only his second year. Can Gordon stay healthy? Can Terry, keep that momentum going and be that type of guy for the full season? Can Miles Bridges improve on his game? So, that just shows you how exciting this team was last year. One, there was a lot more eyes watching the team last year, so that has a lot to do with it. And the opportunity was there for Terry and Miles and LaMelo. So, for them to perform at a level that people saw and, then valued that play makes a lot of sense. But you're gonna be hard pressed to put any of those guys up in the top 50 when, your team's not, in real conversation for the playoffs day in and day out.
Yeah, Danny on the chat mentioning something that was revealed
Hmm.
during the media day blitz is that they plan to load manage Gordon Hayward. And he, Danny on the chat here making the salient point that like adding Oubre makes that more tenable. This is a deeper team that allows for that kind of thing to happen. I will also say that they had success with this last year with Cody Zeller. They load managed Cody Zeller and allowed him and load managed him from the very jump. Like they weren't going hard with him in the off season and in the training camp, and so he just was able to be healthier going into the season. And I think you're going to see the same kind of thing with Gordon Hayward, making sure that he's fresh, 100% ready to go, and then through the season, yes, being able to give him a few days off, I think will be a positive thing. This is a team that's thinking playoffs now. They're not thinking regular season. They're thinking, how do we get to the playoffs? How do we compete in the playoffs? And these are the kind of things that you have to do. In terms of, I think to me there are four kind of teams in the NBA, David. There are teams that can't survive losing multiple superstars. So those are your championship contenders, right? That's the Nets. The Nets can afford to lose one superstar and still contends. The maybe LA. LA could probably stand to lose, one of LeBron or AD, and it would be a tougher road to hoe, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. Okay. So you have those upper echelon teams. Then there are teams that can't survive losing a superstar. That's your Milwaukee. They can't afford to lose Giannis. There are a couple teams with one superstar, and if they go, thus goes the whole team. There are teams that can't survive losing anyone significant, and I think that's where the Hornets land. They really can't afford to lose Gordon for the entire year, to lose LaMelo for the entire year, to lose Terry Rozier for the entire year. Their top three players, if they lose one for the entire year, it's going to be very difficult for them to really get any of the goals that they want for the season, win a playoff series. And then there are finally teams that just can't. They just can't at all,
Right.
like Cleveland. So, a lot of teams in that third position that really don't have a superstar. LaMelo's going to get there, but he's not quite there yet, where, I can envision a scenario one day, David, where LaMelo's so good that you can't afford to lose Gordon Hayward and still be okay. But you can't afford to lose LaMelo. That's second tier. But they're just not there yet.
Yeah, I mean, and that reflects in where LaMelo's ranked, right? I mean, he rose the play of a lot of those guys. I mean, I think Hayward was there, probably got, like you said, dings for being out. So, yeah, they're getting there. They're adding that depth. I mean, it's a great point on the chat because that's why they brought Oubre in. That's why they had to bump up the depth on the wings. So, yeah.
KV commenting here. Wait, the Hornets game is not going to be on Bally Sports anymore. So
no, you're good. If you got Bally Sports, you're good.
Yes, they are going to be on Bally Sports. Bally Sports is owned by Sinclair. I think maybe that was where the confusion.
Yeah, my bad.
Mentioned Sinclair. So Sinclair is the group that owns Bally Sports. So they're the people that we're blaming, essentially.
Right.
So yeah, they're going to be on Bally Sports. And if you have Bally Sports, Bally who to you?
How is it? KV, tell us, give me some feedback. Is Bally Sports as horrible as people say it is? Are you using the app? Let us know.
I prefer to focus on positive things like the new Paul Thomas Anderson movie that's coming out, Licorice Pizza. Danny on the chat says Licorice Pizza looks amazing.
Great title.
But he also says between Cooper Hoffman, who is the son of Philip Seymour Hoffman, and Michael Gandolfini, who is obviously the son of James Gandolfini, I'm all in on the second generation of character actors having a moment. It's a great point.
We'll see. We shall see. I've seen Gandolfini in a few things.
Yeah. I'm not, I was a Sopranos kind of fan. Don't know that I'm terribly interested in this Newark movie.
No.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well.
There you go.
That's it.
All right, folks. That's going to do it for this edition of This Is Not a Serious Hornets podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. If you support us on Patreon, thank you. If you haven't yet, check it out, patreon.com/HornetsPod. It's a way to show your love for the show and to keep our hive alive. We'll be back next week with more analysis from training camp and getting you ready, because we're ready for Hornets preseason to actually see these guys hoop it up. For David, I'm Doug saying go Hornets, go America. Let's swarm sharp.